as I'm sure your opponent will say in a moment, though, when you go up there, you have choices sometimes between bad and worse. If your decisions are the draconian cuts that are affecting, as you say, even the children of Yonkers versus too much spending in Albany, you're a CPA, you know your numbers, you've seen the budget. Exactly where would you cut? What programs would you make New Yorkers go without? And I assume you're not going to raise taxes to raise revenues on the other side. So what gets cut versus what spending, in effect, will stay?
Well, I think there's a number of areas that could be cut. Certainly Medicaid is one of the foremost on the radar screen. Medicaid costs us $52 billion a year, 70% higher than the national average, and more than Florida, Illinois, and Texas combined. It's rife with abuse. And the Senate majority has done nothing to try to correct that abuse, to institute certain systems that would weed out some of the abuse and corruption, such as having finger imaging, periodic asset assessments for people who are on Medicaid, and face-to-face interviews to make sure that the people are actually who they say they are when they're applying for these benefits. There's all sorts of other areas that could be cut as well. The member items. I mean, we see stories of abuse. Senator Pedro Espada, Vito Lopez, who are in the paper constantly now for all the abuse where they sent money, shifted money, or steered money to not-for-profits where friends and family were receiving benefits.
We'll be talking, I'm sure, about Pedro Espada in a little bit. Let me pose the question to you, Senator. What about that? He talked about Medicaid abuse. If you get reelected, where are you going to go back? Stimulus money, it's going to be in short supply from the federal government, even worse than it was the year prior. You're going to have to make more painful decisions here. What gets cut here if you're going to make the numbers right?
Well, I think it's important that we put some reality to and pass legislation that will allow for a change in a formula. And there was no formula before I got there. There was none. There was a formula that had, get the money that you can and bring it somewhere else. But at this point, there is a formula in place, and we are continuing to work with the Yonkers. So the school funding, I wanted to get that straightened out, but the Medicaid, it's not true that we've done nothing. We have a Medicaid Inspector General in place that has a tremendous opportunity and takes it. We have saved billions of dollars already. We will address Medicaid fraud.
Okay, I'm going to switch back to economic development. And you had mentioned the state budget, which legislators approved a 3-year deferral on annual tax credits that cumulatively exceed $2 million. These deferrals apply to some 30 incentive programs offered to businesses, including investment tax credits, Empire Zone, and brownfield credits, which developers and other companies in Westchester and throughout the Hudson Valley use. In Yonkers, the deferrals could apply to several projects that are under development, and one of those is River Park City, which is, as you know, of course, is a very significant mixed-use downtown redevelopment project that will require an extensive cleanup. And Ms. Stewart-Cousins, I would ask you, critics of these deferrals say that postponing tax credits to businesses that are entitled to them sends a message about the credibility of state government. And how can the state encourage economic development when there is this lack of predictability? In other words, how can business people plan when they're not sure if things are going to be changed next year? So I would ask you what you would say to businesses about that.
Well, in my opening statement, I talked about the types of programs that we are beginning. First of all, we were working with programs that, like everything else, that worked in state government. It was working for maybe a very few, but there was just no accountability. There were credits that were given out for jobs that were supposed to be created and billions of dollars in various development incentives and, frankly, no record, no assessment of what the benefits were.
Are you talking about the Empire Zone?
I'm talking about the Empire Zone, and I'm talking about just the way business was done in general. It's just, here's the program, here's the money, enjoy. So the reality is that there were several changes, one being instead of the Empire Zone, we've taken on the Excelsior project, the Excelsior program, which again targets and has accountability, encourages businesses in new areas, helps businesses to sustain their employees and to grow. We are trying to give liquidity so that we can have partnerships for research and development. we worked hard, and I continue to work to make sure that those developers that have those credits are grandfathered and keep those credits. We fought long to make sure that those credits didn't go away. Even in the Empire Zone, they're not going to go away. The deferment again was for the future investment, and with the programs that I'm talking about and with the collective cooperation of both, looking at the sign, of all of us, we will create a business environment that is stable.
May I just clarify, though, you mentioned that the deferral companies would be grandfathered in, but I believe some of these projects have already started. They're not going to be, completed for a few years. Those would be grandfathered in?
As far as I know, they would be grandfathered in, but again, I've worked with several developers who were concerned. We were able to make changes that were going to imperil various developments. I continue to work with my companies, and we will continue to do what we can to make sure that projects go forward. It is not the desire of the state to cripple projects or to stop economic development, I can assure you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McLaughlin, on your website, you say you will, and I quote, find new and creative ways to promote economic development. So if elected, what would you do in light of this tax deferral issue?
Well, I think it's an abomination. It's something that has to be repealed. As you pointed out, Karen, they're businesses. These are very complex developments with complex financing schemes, and they have put these plans together with an understanding that certain things would be in order. Certain of these tax credits, the brownfield credits, the Empire Zone credits, that they would be in place. Now for the state to pull the rug out from under them completely sets a lot of these projects back and completely jeopardizes their ability to actually happen. While I was in Yonkers, we worked very hard. While I was on the city council, it was interesting to me that as someone who had come from the east side and was touting development on the west side of Yonkers because it had been underutilized for very many years, people on the east side of town they almost thought it was a world away. But as it was happening, as the development was happening, and we took very affirmative steps to make that happen. We had to reduce taxes. We had to cut the income tax surcharge. We had to cut the real property transfer tax to bring businesses, to attract them to Yonkers, New York. And as it happened, it had a ripple effect, and not only a ripple effect, but a morale effect around the city of Yonkers. People saw the development going on. They were happy. They were proud again. They were working. So these are the types of things. We need to look at reducing taxes across the board, particularly these taxes that are affecting businesses, because it's not only the development themselves, but the businesses that they're seeking to attract. If you have some of these onerous taxes, the businesses are not going to come. They'll go to North Carolina where they're not going to pay these taxes. So all of these taxes that affect businesses have to be on the chopping block.
Okay, thank you.